Hello, good evening. Thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Blake Burman. So President Trump says, told you so. And Hunter Biden is back tonight. The president says a new report shows his economy is working as the former first son criticizes his dad.
I think one of the failures was the way in which they executed the withdrawal from Afghanistan. I think it was an obvious failure.
Also this evening and happening right now, thousands of pages of the Epstein Files released. The new questions around potential unnamed co-conspirators. What Congress wants next. Plus the mounting pressure in Minnesota. Now it's the mayors piling on. The new questions facing Governor Tim Walz tonight as billions in fraud continue to be uncovered. And got milk? Well, in school, your kids do. Why the kind they are drinking could soon change, and how it could be tough for some parents to swallow who are seeking healthier choices. But first tonight, a blowout report and thousands of new documents. President Trump and the White House hailing significant economic growth here in the U.S. The Commerce Department today revealing the economy grew at its fastest rate in 2 years. However, it's perhaps overshadowed by this. Thousands of new Epstein Files documents released. Some include the president's name, and there are new calls in Congress to remove the redactions. As we now know, the FBI identified 10 potential co-conspirators 6 years ago. Our Kelly Meyer starts us off tonight live in Florida outside Mar-a-Lago following the president on a Christmas break. Kelly, when you talk about the economy, the Epstein Files, and Venezuela, with news there as well that is loaded with headlines tonight.
Yeah, a mixed bag of gifts, both good and bad, for the president this Christmas. Let's start with the good news that you mentioned. The president, Christmas came early for him with that economic news today, noticing a surge in the economy, the strongest growth rate in 2 years, defying expectations. The White House basking in that news today. One White House official telling me, quote, Americans can count on benefiting from a historic economic boom in 2026. But it had a side of bad news. As you mentioned, the Epstein documents, another trove of those dumped today, the biggest trove of information released from the pressure of lawmakers. So that came out today. It included several mentions, as you said, of Donald Trump's name, which the Justice Department noted had many unsubstantiated or unverified accusations against him. One part of the document dump, Blake, included a postcard from convicted pedophile that met Larry Nassar that mentioned Trump. The FBI later called that fake. Also of note, as you mentioned, Blake, 10 co-conspirators where their names were redacted. The top Democrat on Capitol Hill in the Senate asking, what are they hiding, end quote. And the president reportedly pumping up military in Puerto Rico and sending in reinforcements there. That's what we're hearing tonight from the Wall Street Journal and checking with our sources at the Pentagon now. He's also sending another strike on an alleged drug boat. We also see that the U.S. is still in that active pursuit for that third sanctioned oil tanker. We did hear today from the UN Ambassador Mike Waltz speaking in support of the seizure of those sanctioned tankers. Listen to this.
Maduro's ability to sell Venezuela's oil enables his fraudulent claim to power and his narco-terrorist activities. The people of Venezuela, frankly, deserve better. These people who have suffered under Maduro's socialist dictatorship.
So these escalating tensions, Blake, sending ripple effects around the world. It was interesting. You see that Russia and China there were supporting Venezuela, and Russia even saying that Trump's actions in Venezuela call into question his commitment to bringing peace around the world. And that's something we hear the president speak often about, is becoming a peacemaker. Blake.
Kelly Meyer following the president tonight outside Mar-a-Lago. Kelly, thank you. Meantime, the former president, Joe Biden, coming under fire from his own son.
He had mistakes like every other president has had. Some that I may disagree with, but absolutely 100% had some real failures also.
Hunter Biden sitting down for a 5.5-hour podcast interview with the retired Navy SEAL Sean Ryan, in which he criticizes his dad's handling of the 2021 Afghanistan troop withdrawal and speaks out on immigration. Our Hannah Brandt following this story tonight for us. Hannah?
Hi, Blake. As I'm sure you can imagine, Hunter had a lot to say during that very long conversation. At many points, he defended his dad, his record as president, and his decision to run again for president in 2024. But the part of this conversation that really caught a lot of people's attention was where he criticized his dad, where he pointed out those failures when asked by the podcast host Sean Ryan about what those failures were. Hunter said the biggest was that 2021 U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan that killed 13 service members. Take a listen.
I think one of the failures was the way in which they executed the withdrawal from Afghanistan. I think it was an obvious failure. I can blame it on his generals. I can blame it on the people, the way in which we did it. But my dad always knew this also, is that the buck stops with him. I think that was a failure.
In a different part of the discussion, Hunter also agreed with the podcast host that there are some real issues in the current U.S. immigration system.
Let's agree with this. The system is broken, completely broken. So let's get together and do a bipartisan legislation as it relates to it.
Hunter did point out that there was bipartisan legislation on the table while his father was president that President Biden did support, and he notes that it was then candidate Donald Trump who opposed it, ultimately killing that bill. Now, also during that discussion about immigration, Hunter said he doesn't even know if he's really a Democrat anymore. He kind of expressed frustration with the whole political system. Blake.
Hannah Brandt, live for us tonight. Hannah, thank you. Joining us now, News Nation political contributor, former Trump White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, and Chris Hahn, host of the Aggressive Progressive podcast, also News Nation political contributor. Gentlemen, hello to you both. Thanks for being here. Hunter Biden back in the news. Didn't think we'd have that. We knew we would have the Epstein Files, though. Mick, let's start there because now there's this list of the 10 potential co-conspirators. And a lot of this is redacted. Here's House Democrats tonight. Who are Epstein's co-conspirators? Why are they making illegal redactions? We will get answers and justice for the survivors. They are calling this a criminal White House cover-up. What's before the White House tonight?
Yeah, they've got some things to deal with. There's no question about it. But keep in mind, the legislation that passed and that was signed by Donald Trump said you had to do the dump now. The documents had to be, and then 15 days later, they have to give a report, the DOJ does, on why they did the redaction. So they sort of have wait and see. But the simple fact is, for the next 15 days, the Democrats are going to be able to actually make tremendous hay out of this politically. Blake, at some point, they just sort of have to come forward with everything. I mean, even the victims' names. To be fair, I mean, if you accuse me of committing a crime, you have to do that publicly. That's
not going to happen. That's not going to happen, though, Mick, with the victims' names.
Well, certainly, if there's underage people, that's a different story. But if they're adults, why wouldn't it happen? I mean, that's a full disclosure. If everybody wants a full disclosure, let's have a full disclosure. And I don't think this is not going to go away until you have exactly that.
Han?
Yeah, look, the perception here is that they're covering something up, right? Politics is about perception. If you don't turn everything over, people say, what are you going to hide? I think this has been handled horribly by the administration. They should have dumped the entire thing months ago without all of this back and forth. Because they have slow-walked it, because they have overly redacted so much stuff, it leads people to believe they're covering things up, and they believe they are covering things up for the president. So I think that, I don't know who's advising him. I guess nobody really. This must be him. But my advice would be it's the drip, drip, drip that kills you in a scandal. Throw everything out onto the table and do it right now.
Okay, all right, let me take you to the economy real quick. Han, 4.3% GDP. Best in 2 years.
Yeah.
Give the president credit, his administration credit, or no?
Do I got to repeat my perception line? Because everything's about perception, right? When Donald Trump crows about the economy, I hear Joe Biden crowing about the economy. And it didn't work out well for him or other Democrats that sought to replace him in 2024. The American people feel the economy is not doing well, and a large part of the GDP boost is a result of some bad policy with tariffs that that are raising costs for the average Americans. Grocery prices are up. Things that people use every day are up because the president has put tariffs on things that we don't make here in the United States of America. If I was advising him on that, I would say, find out the stuff that you got tariffs on that we don't make here and get rid of them so that prices come down and Americans start feeling it.
Mick, I'm not sure you can go around the country and start talking about GDP this and GDP that, to Han's point, but does it give you optimism for potentially what's to come? Yeah. And I say potentially in 2026.
It does. If the number was, a really good number would have been 2.8 or 2.9 or something like that. A 4 number is fantastic. Chris is right. You can't eat GDP. But if these numbers are real, people are going to start feeling it right away. Keep in mind, they're already doing some of the things that maybe Chris is advising them. They've already announced that they're going to start pulling back on tariffs on stuff we don't make here or aren't going to make here. I think Kevin Hassett mentioned that a couple weeks ago, reaffirmed it again, I think as early as today. These are called exemptions to tariffs. One of the things that Trump did properly in the first term and that they didn't do this term because he was listening more to Peter Navarro than anybody else. So they are getting things sort of straightened out. I guess if I'm sort of going to watch, keep an eye out for what could go wrong with these numbers, the inflation numbers are hotter than I think anybody would want. And that's a concern. By the way, those two things often go together. If the GDP number is really, really big, it can put pressure on pricing, depending upon what's driving that GDP number.
Gentlemen, got to leave it there. Chris Hahn, Mick Mulvaney, Merry Christmas to you both. Mick, looks like you're already in the spirit.
Happy Festivus.
Han promised me his Rangers jersey tonight, and he comes out here with a suit.
Islanders jersey.
He showed up like a true pro.
Islanders.
Showed up like a true pro. Guys, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Catch you soon. All right, so how about this? You got whole milk? American schools may soon say yes. But not everybody is raising a glass. I'm going to explain to you soon what's going on there. Plus, the fraud freakout. Nearly 100 mayors in Minnesota take Democratic Governor Tim Walz to task over billions lost in a welfare scam, the latest from that state. And get the most bang for your buck this Christmas, the points guy. Here with us tonight on The Hill to break it all down for you coming up. I thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm Blake Burman, other side, 4 minutes out. All right, so for years, you've known the slogan, right? Milk, it does a body good. Who would have thought that would actually be up for a debate, at least politically? Well, Congress recently passed the Whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act, which restores access to whole milk in school cafeterias. It's a move that rolls back an Obama-era nutrition standard aimed at reducing childhood obesity by limiting the access to milk with higher saturated fat and calories. President Trump has yet to sign the legislation, but it's expected he will, which would mean your kids' lunch menus could soon be changing. Joining us now, Sid Miller. He is the Ag Commissioner in the great state of Texas, back with us live once again here on The Hill, Stevensville, Texas, it looks like tonight. Sid, always nice to see you. You're in favor of this, bringing whole milk back into schools. Tell me why.
Well, first of all, Merry Christmas. Glad to be back on your show. Well, if there was one food you had to pick that was the perfectly balanced, nutritious food, it would be whole milk. I mean, God created it to raise infants and young children. It is the perfect food. I raised a couple of football players. They probably went through 6 gallons of whole milk a week. Made state champions out of them, too. So this has been a long time coming. I've been fighting this for 11 years in Texas. I came on board here when Michelle Obama was running the school lunchroom. And quite frankly, we had healthy trash cans instead of healthy kids. So this is a big move. I applaud G.T. Thompson and the Congress for passing this. And I'm pretty sure Trump will sign it.
All right. So there's a question here with the Make America Healthy Again movement. Here's the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. They say that right now that this is basically not the right move for kids. They say, quote, the federal government should be putting less saturated fat on school lunch trays, not more. And it can do that by making it easier for students to access non-dairy beverages and plant-based beverages. When I look at what's in your milk, skim 1%, 2%, whole milk clearly for our audience here on News Nation or those listening to us on Sirius XM, you can see it there. It's got higher fat, higher calories. What would you say to those who say this is not healthy?
Well, 2% milk is half water. I mean, it's the same thing as whole milk, because you're just getting half a cup instead of a full cup. 1% is, a fourth a cup of milk. I mean, it's the same thing. It's just watered down. Doesn't have as much fat or calories in it because it's mostly water. So, those guys have been wrong. We have the nutritional facts now. That there's not a better source of calcium, protein, good fats, good solids, all kinds of vitamins and minerals in it, calcium. It's like I said earlier, it's the perfect food. If you're going to eat one food that would keep you alive from now on, whole milk would do that.
So this is bipartisan. This passed the House, passed the Senate. For example, Peter Welch, who's a Democrat in Vermont, he called it a major win and said it will help dairy farmers. We've covered extensively here, Sid, farm bankruptcies, right? And how they have been soaring in 2025 compared to 2024. What does this mean for farmers?
Well, it's good. We want to sell more milk. Obviously good there. But what the real focus is our children, the students. Is it good for them? Is it healthy for them? Of course it is. Now, I will say this is not a mandate. Not every kid has to drink whole milk. It's a choice. The schools don't even have to put it out if they don't want to. So if they want to, they can have whole milk. They will have a choice of 2%, 1%, skim milk. All of that is still available. So it's up to the individual school. The parents can have a say. That's why I love local control. So as long as the parents have a say in what their kids are eating and drinking, I think that's a plus.
Are you surprised that milk became a political conversation, Sid?
Well, I am. I mean, it should have never been taken off to begin with. It's wholesome. It's good. It's full of everything I just listed. I mean, I don't know why who thought it was a good idea to water down milk and serve it to our kids. That's got to be less nutritious, right? It has 2% has half not half the calories. It doesn't even have half the calories, but it has half the protein and half the minerals and half half the calcium. So.
Yeah, we showed the numbers. Skim milk, 80 calories, whole milk, 150. Anyways, there's arguments on both sides. Appreciate you giving your time and your perspective. By the way, I should note, 95,000 schools in this country who serve lunches to kids. About 29 million kids receive school lunches daily, 20 of those provided free. Sid Miller is the Ag Commissioner out there in the state of Texas with us tonight. Sid, thank you.
Drink more milk.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you, sir. Still much more ahead tonight here on the Hill, including from small towns to the Twin Cities. 98 mayors now in Minnesota say they've had enough. They are blasting the leader of that state as billions of dollars go unaccounted for. Plus, oral injections are out. How you can start the new year with the first ever weight loss pill. What the FDA announced now on the other side. All right, it is the bottom of the hour. Here's some of the top headlines that are coming into our newsroom right now and what we are watching at this hour. And this one is breaking at this moment. The governor in Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, now on his way to the scene of what we're learning to be an explosion at a nursing home in Bucks County. That explosion happening at around 2:30 this afternoon. An emergency responder saying that there are several people trapped inside at this moment. What caused this explosion right now unclear, but public records show the home has enough room for 174 beds. Responders are calling this a mass casualty event. Bucks County, Pennsylvania. We continue to follow what is going on there. Meantime, California bracing for torrential rain tonight through Christmas with a month's worth of rain potentially. Powerful winds as well expected up and down the coast there. The Los Angeles area expected to get the worst of it with flash flooding and potential mudslides expected there as well. Evacuation orders already in place for areas devastated by the fires from the start of this year. The former Nebraska Senator Ben Sasse announcing today that he has been diagnosed with terminal stage 4 pancreatic cancer. In a lengthy post on X, the 53-year-old writing in part, quote, "Last week I was diagnosed with metastasized stage 4 pancreatic cancer and am gonna die." The husband and father of 3 also noted he will not be going down without a fight. Ben Sasse, former senator, it was a lengthy and emotional post with that announcement today. Also late this afternoon, the Supreme Court dealing a blow to the Trump administration, saying they cannot deploy National Guard troops to Chicago in an effort to protect immigration agents. It was a 6-3 ruling on the high court, the majority saying at this preliminary stage, the government has failed to identify a source of authority that would allow the military to execute the laws in Illinois. Now, this is the first time that the court has ruled on the National Guard deployments, but cases in California and Oregon could also get a ruling in the coming months as well. A little bit of a lighter note here. No more shots, potentially. The FDA has given the green light to a pill version of the weight loss drug Wegovy. Now, this makes it the first oral medication to treat obesity and could expand the booming market for weight loss medication, including giving more people access at lower costs. The Wegovy pill is expected to be available within weeks. How about that? Now, we are also monitoring the ongoing outrage over fraud in Minnesota. 98 mayors all across that state tonight are raising the alarm, writing a letter to the governor, Tim Walz, over how the overwhelming fraud scandal and excessive spending is harming their communities. All of this, as the House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer says, the committee is now expanding its own investigation into the fraud in Minnesota. Comer putting out a statement saying in part, quote, the committee is requesting information from the Treasury Department and the Department of Justice, as well as transcribed interviews with Minnesota state officials. Our Joe Khalil has been following this one, News Nation, on top of it throughout. Joe, this is clearly not an escalation, but when you've got 98 mayors in Minnesota saying they want answers, it just raises the profile.
Yeah, and it's not happening in a vacuum either. You talked about the sort of Medicaid fraud situation. Now we've got this group of 98 mayors from places all across Minnesota, most of them registered Republicans, but putting their names on this letter and, Blake, seemingly piling on now to the criticism of Governor Tim Walz for his financial management of the state, appealing to the governor, saying he's got to clamp down on both the spending and the fraud. And what these mayors have alleged in their letter is that they say it's because of high taxes, lack of responsiveness to critical issues in their communities. And they write here that Minnesotans watched a historic $18 billion surplus disappear in a period of 2 years, only now to face an updated projected $2.9 to $3 billion deficit in the years to come. They say we see firsthand how these decisions ripple outward. Fraud, unchecked spending, and inconsistent fiscal management in St. Paul have trickled down to our city. So if you add this frustration, Blake, to the Medicaid fraud scandal, obviously this is a very serious, real problem for Governor Walz, also a political problem. And we talked about how Congress is now furthering its investigation. Chairman James Comer saying that not only is he requesting records from the Treasury Department about shady spending, but also potentially bringing in officials from Minnesota to do interviews as part of his investigation. We imagine, Blake, this is simply going to continue. This is not going away, at least anytime soon here.
No, it's not. Our Joe Khalil on it for us tonight. Joe, thank you. All right, so here in the News Nation newsroom, it is, as I hope where you are, the season of joy, but it's also the time of year when the scene at the airport could potentially take some of that away. I want to give you a live look right now. LAX out west, as well as San Francisco International Airport. You can see it looks like things are doing all right there. It's also the time of year when traffic can be enough to make you go absolutely nuts. Here's some of the scene on the East Coast. Looks like we got a little rush hour traffic there. Raleigh, North Carolina this evening. Looks fine in one direction, maybe not so much in the other. AAA is reporting that 122 million Americans will be driving 50 miles or more this week. That is a huge jump from the same week last year. But whether you're driving, flying, going to a luxury resort, an Airbnb, you name it, my next guest is the man to talk to try to help that holiday travel feel a little bit less stress-free. Clint Henderson is the managing editor over with The Points Guy, travel expert with us tonight here on the Hill. Clint, first off, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, whether you're staying or traveling. Hope you have a good one. Let's start with sort of the big theme, right? What is, as you see it, the big holiday travel theme this year in 2025?
I think the travel theme is another record-breaking year. I thought maybe we'd get a little ebb in demand because of the government shutdown. I think some people did decide that they weren't going to fly, they were going to drive instead. So we are seeing some of that reflected in the numbers so far. But I think overall, travel is a priority for people, and we have not really seen any let up in the demand for travel.
Gas prices down. Right? Down compared this year to last year. It's 280 something. In my neighborhood, it's in the 250s, 260s. Are more people going to drive because of that?
Yeah, I definitely think you're seeing more people drive. And I think some people decided during the shutdown, they got nervous about flying.
Right.
And so I think you saw some people switch over.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, if you were booking that trip in August or October, November for December, maybe there is some downstream effects there. Let me show you prices for things like car rentals, hotels, and flights. The theme here is either during the pandemic or post-pandemic, prices shot up, and then they've come back down, essentially. Why is that?
Well, I think the first thing is you saw a lot of pent-up demand during the pandemic, and a lot of people decided they wanted to travel. And so when you came out of the pandemic, hotels were not staffed enough. They didn't have enough rooms open. There weren't enough flights. There weren't enough planes. There weren't enough pilots. And so what happened is you had all this demand meeting not enough supply. And so prices jumped up. They've normalized since then, though we are seeing prices for airfare in particular about 1% to 4% higher year over year. But in general, you're seeing a return to normalcy as the airlines have gotten their planes again in the air again, and crews are staffed, and all that stuff's back to normal.
I mean, 1% to 4%, that basically tracks with inflation, right? So not huge. All right, Clint Henderson.
But hotels are crazy. Like the escalation of the price of hotel over the past 5 years has been extraordinary to watch, and not in a good way.
If you travel, you feel it. Clint Henderson with the Points Guy with us tonight. Merry Christmas, Clint. And if you're traveling, best of luck.
All right. Thank you.
Of course. Still to come tonight here on The Hill. Santa has his list. So do we. What's coming up in 2026? Other side of the break, I'm about to join the panel when we return.
Traveling? Don't forget to pack News Nation in the airport, for your hotel room, at the in-laws. Take the only news network that respects all Americans with you wherever you go. Stop by newsnationnow.com to learn more.
I believe we're going to have the most successful economy in history. We inherited a mess. Now prices are coming way down.
President Trump, just the other day, touting his administration's economic achievements and assuring that the best is yet to come. And this morning, waking up to a bit of an early Christmas gift. The strongest economic growth in nearly 2 years. The president celebrating the news on Truth Social, a 4.3% GDP reading, attributing the boon to, quote, good government and tariffs. Full panel here with me now. Tia Mitchell is the D.C. bureau chief for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Scott Bolden, News Nation political contributor, and Mark Short, former chief of staff to the Vice President Mike Pence. Gentlemen, hello to you both. Thanks for being here. Tia, hello to you as well. This was, we've heard from the president, the best is yet to come, the best is yet to come, the best is yet to come. They've been talking about 2026, but they got a little bit of a gift this morning with this reading of 4.3% economic growth.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're good indicators, so you can't deny that. But the reality is that most people at home are not paying attention to these numbers. They're paying attention to the numbers they see at their local gas station, their local grocery store. And that's what's more difficult. It was difficult under the Biden administration. I think it's difficult now under the Trump administration.
You can't run around and wave a GDP report around, can you?
No, but it's a great number. It's a great number for the Trump administration, and markets hitting all-time highs again. And frankly, gas prices are significantly lower. So even the gas pump people are feeling a price depreciation. So I think this number is great. I still think though that the challenge is going to be on the jobs front. I think you saw, that last month we reached the highest unemployment in 4+ years, and I think that much of the trade agenda is being affected in middle American jobs. And you've seen manufacturing actually lose jobs for 7 months in a row, and that was what the trade agenda was supposed to help. But undeniably, this number is a great number for the administration.
So you walked me right into it. Scott, here's some of the report card on jobs. Let's start there. Over the last 6 months, here's sort of what the administration, maybe not would point to. 3 of the last 6 months, they've lost jobs, okay? But let's go to GDP. GDP up 4.3%. Let's go to gas prices. It is down this year compared to last year, running in the 280s, though much lower than that in other parts of the country. And then as Mark mentioned, the S&P 500, I promise you I didn't coordinate this with Mark, but this was part of his answer, hitting an all-time high today. Yeah. So when you look at growth, the market, and gas prices, that's the good for the administration.
Yeah, it is. And the GDP is really a good number. But what's driving that is consumer spending, those people who have jobs, good paying jobs, government spending. And so that's a great number. But again, people aren't feeling it. But what the administration ought to really be concerned about is this rising unemployment rate. Because because I think you want interest rates down, but as long as unemployment is rising, you're probably not going to get that. And so we're in this kind of weird phase. It'll be interesting to see next year, does the Fed reduce interest rates continuing, notwithstanding this higher unemployment rate?
You're a conservative, Mark. You were the president's first director of legislative affairs. You are not with him on tariffs. He says today the success is due to good government and tariffs. The argument is it's keeping companies here and not outsourcing. And we've heard this from the president. There's really lots of arguments, to be fair, from him. What would your reaction be to the argument that this is because of tariffs?
I think that tax relief plays a huge role in this. I think passing his legislative achievement is a big boost to the economy. I don't think the tariff agenda is. I think the tariff agenda is costing jobs in middle America. And I think that's what you're seeing in the unemployment numbers. And I think, that it's going to be hard to make a case that the Fed should continue reducing rates when markets are hitting all-time highs and GDP has this high of a number. So I think that the challenge he's going to continue to see is his trade agenda hollowing out jobs in middle America.
The one thing that we know from the president is he is not, and my first reaction today, Tia, to this report, when I saw the 4.3% print, my first reaction was, he's just going to double down on tariffs. Yeah. Whether you disagree with it or agree with it, he's now fully in if you didn't believe he was beforehand.
Yeah, I mean, the president has said from day one that this was part of his economic policy. He stood behind it. He hasn't necessarily had the it's been hard to follow his policy on tariffs, but he has stood behind that. He believes tariffs are a good thing. They're a good tool. He believes that it's helped with negotiating with different nations. So I'm not surprised that he continues to stand behind it. It's just that there isn't necessarily the evidence that they've worked in the way that he says they've worked.
But I think that the primary industry you're supposed to be helping would be the manufacturing industry, where you've seen 7 months in a row of declines in jobs. And I think the reality is you would see higher exports if the tariffs were really working. You're not seeing that. The consumer is strong, and I think that's a credit to the administration. They should take credit for that. And the markets are at all-time highs, but it's not because of the trade agenda.
Yeah, but the average voter, though, and the person making $100,000 or less is really being hurt. The farmers are being hurt. It's Trump's own economic terrorism with the tariffs is where the other parts of the economy and those other economic indicators aren't where they need to be. And so that's going to keep it in a mixed bag, if you will.
All right. Well, we know tariffs are here to stay. What the economy does going forward, who the heck knows? No one knows, right? We'll see in 2026. When we return back, right, we obviously head into Christmas, get some time off, take a little break, New Year's, do whatever you do on New Year's, and then comes 2026. I've jotted down here healthcare, a new Fed chair, maybe a housing plan, stimulus checks later in the year, the health insurance CEOs coming to the White House, the president says in the first week. Oh, by the way, there's Venezuela looming out there. What do you think is before us? What do you think is before the president come the start of the year?
Well, the president should be thinking about this, but even more so Congress, the people who work right behind us, they've got a government funding deadline coming up.
I missed that one. January 30th, yeah.
So we're looking at the prospect of either another temporary funding bill, because the full year appropriations bills are not ready. They won't be ready in time. So either temporary government funding or a government shutdown.
So you used to be, as I tell folks, the line from the White House to the Hill. You know Hill Republicans, Mark, as well as anyone. How realistic is that possible?
I don't think there'll be a shutdown. I think the Democrats got everything they wanted out of the previous one. There's no incentive for Republicans to force a shutdown. I do think there'll be a bigger fight on the Obamacare subsidies, and I think that that's going to probably play out in January, too.
What happens there?
Republicans cave.
You think so?
Yeah, I do.
On a short term?
I think the president has always been supportive of extending the subsidies, is the reality. And so he's going to cut the knees out from those who are in the Republican caucus who are looking to fight against him. And there's enough moderates in the caucus that don't want to have, amidst the affordability crisis, they don't want to have this headache right now. And so they're just going to push to say, let's extend them. So I think ultimately that conservatives will get rolled on this.
There's still no health care plan from the Republicans, though. I mean, extending the subsidies. But I want to focus on something else. I think the social and culture wars from the White House and from the appropriate agencies is going to continue. There's a letter that was issued to the Smithsonian Institute about the 250-year anniversary and how they're still waiting for this report on how these exhibits and how America is going to be portrayed, if you will. Well, that's bad news for the Smithsonian for African American Culture, bad news for the Native American Smithsonian, or rather museum. And what is Lonnie Bunch and others going to do in response to this letter or providing this information? Because in the letter, and I've seen it, it says even if you provide it, right, essentially anything negative about American history is not going to be tolerated. That's a huge issue for those two institutions. And are those communities going to stand up and fight, or is there going to be some deal cut with the White House in anticipation of the 250th year anniversary?
All right, we'll leave it there. Mark, Scott, Tia, thank you so much. Merry Christmas. Hope you have a happy new year as well. Other side of the break, everybody knows about the famous Christmas trees at the White House, right? In the Capitol. But we're going to introduce you to another tree making some waves and why some are not happy about it. When we return. All right, welcome back here to the Hill as we head into Christmas Eve tomorrow. Most of you watching maybe have your trees all set up, decorated. For most people, those trees are filled with decorations and ornaments that may be family heirlooms, simply just nice purchases from a local store, maybe what the kids want, who knows. But for two men here in our nation's capital, their Christmas tree has been decorated with a political twist. Joining me now, Jamie Branda, owner of Floriana Restaurants, and Dito Sevilla, the designer of that Christmas tree, with us tonight. Hello, gentlemen. Thanks for being here. First off, instead of seeing us, let's show the picture of what you guys do, because it's kind of remarkable. You have this 14-foot tree this year, right? Here we go. All right, so this is some of it. And of all the things that you could decorate a tree with, you decide to do politics. Why, and what are you doing this year?
So this year, Dito and I went with the East Wing.
Okay.
It's a hot topic. Come on. I mean, that's what everyone's talking about.
Yeah. Well, at least in this town, a lot of folks are. So what am I looking at here? Tell us.
Oh, come on. This is a 14-foot Douglas fir. Comes nationally to us from New Jersey. But the tree is decorated with a panoply of First Lady's ornaments and a throwback to all things East Wing.
So the East Wing is where his First Lady office is housed and so on and so forth.
And, of course, the tree is decorated then further with the current bulldozer theme, which indicates some of the current renovations going on.
To show some rebel.
How'd you decide to get into this?
Oh, boy. I mean, we've been doing this tree for how many years now?
I think we're on year 15 or 16.
That sounds about right. It started smaller and kind of spiraled out of control, basically, as all things do with Dito.
In 2016, we had done a tree that was for Dia de los Muertos. It had Mexican sugar skulls on it, and the top was a pumpkin. And we did get some death threats because the public thought it was satanic.
We did.
And the year after, we
that didn't slow you down, I take it.
It did. The year after, we had some leftover flags, American flags, and I said, you know what? I'll do an unimpeachable tree where no one can complain. And that was the year that the ladies had taken over the Congress again. And so we made a Nancy Pelosi tree to it, and she came to visit. And so that sort of really started the political, the tint on the trees.
I did get some pretty good threats from that one, though, including stuff mailed from like upstate New York that I had to send to the FBI.
It's never anyone in local.
This is how this brings, I assume, a lot of folks into the restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
How much? Translate it for me.
You know, it's hard to say because we've been doing it for so long that, but the uptick I would say is probably on a weekend up 30% once the tree is fully operational and once we do our official lighting.
What ornaments are on it right now?
Well, near the top, you have excavators, and bulldozers, and backhoes.
And there's a huge collection of vintage photographs from first ladies in the past. Some American flags, of course. Red, white, and blue crystal balls.
You let folks hang stuff on it or no?
We had a community tree, but then you have to control what the public brings in, and so it's easier to just do it all yourself.
Correct me if I'm wrong. There is still a Melania B. Best ornament.
There is, of course, yes, one of her original ornaments.
We have something from
the original first administration.
Very cool. Well, looks beautiful here in town. Floriana Restaurant. If you make it to DC this holiday season, Jamie, Tito, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Us tonight. Appreciate it. All right, tonight on Elizabeth Vargas Report, she is following the latest on that shocking arrest of a mother whose 9-year-old daughter's body has been found after she went missing 2 months ago. Police with the news conference this afternoon. Elizabeth has the very latest coming up here on News Nation in moments. Well, as we count down the hours until Christmas, I want to show you just a couple scenes of what's taking place all across this country tonight, wherever you might be. These are a couple live looks. Left side of your screen, Gaylord, Michigan. You can see the snow's on the ground, the Santa's up, the temperature is cold. And right side of your screen, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, probably Las Olas Boulevard there in the middle of Fort Lauderdale. Palm trees flying and waving, a much different scene. I hope you have a Merry Christmas. If you're in the cold, in the sun, in the South, Midwest, wherever you might be, Merry Christmas to you and yours. I thank you so much for being with us tonight here on The Hill. I hand it over to Elizabeth Vargas. Elizabeth starts right now.